Two of the states where lawmakers are passing legislation creating some of the most extreme infringements on civil rights today are without a doubt Texas and North Carolina. Be it the rights of women to control their own bodies or the rights of all citizens to have access to the ballot box. As preparations are underway for the 50th anniversary of the march, as they were underway for the anniversary march here, I had a chance to speak with a member of Congress from each of those states, North Carolina and Texas, members of the Congressional Black Caucus. We spoke about the role of the caucus in the issues facing their constituents back at home, and of course their memories of that historic day.
The thing that stands out in my mind is that there were a lot of white people who were joining hands with black people for a common purpose, and that was to address the question of civil rights. And to come to Washington and to see perhaps 1 out of 4 people in the crowd being white, not only were they there, but they were carrying signs and they were supporting the cause.
You are in Texas, where we have just this week learned that the Department of Justice is going to need to intervene in order to protect voting rights. 50 years after this march, are we marching backward?
That's a very good question. What I would say now, being in Texas, being in the district that has been redistricted and protected by the Voting Rights Act of 1965, it is more a part of my heart to be able to save it, not for me, but to recognize that protests and petition, which seeds were planted by the movement, are no longer or not old-fashioned tools.
Talk to me about what you can do as a member of Congress here in D.C., but from North Carolina, to help reverse some of what's happened in terms of the erosion of voting rights in North Carolina, and to halt what looks like might be potentially the most serious erosion in the 50 years since this march.
Republicans are not trying to eliminate the black vote. They simply want to diminish it.
Yes, that's right. Just enough, just by the margin.
They want to diminish it by just enough to ensure that Republican majority stays in place. President Barack Obama won North Carolina in 2008 by 14,000 votes. And so if they can diminish the African-American vote and the student vote by 10 votes per precinct statewide, the Democrats will become a permanent minority party. Never again would we be able to have any influence in policymaking.
Congressional Black Caucus has been criticized over the years that in some of the ways I suppose that President Obama is now, that as members of the Congressional Black Caucus, as members of Congress, here you are, you hold these positions, and when I look in these communities, I still see crime. I still see violence. I still see economic deprivation. I still see failing schools. If the answer is not simply to elect good and honest and motivated elected officials like yourself, what are the answers to those enduring problems that we're facing?
That's a relevant question. I don't take it lightly. It takes community support. It takes the faith community. It takes all people of goodwill of all races working together to make sure that our young people are productive, to make sure that they have 21st century schools to be educated in. We need well-paid, well-trained teachers in the classroom. We need nonprofit programs in the community that can embrace children who are at risk to make sure that they stay on a positive path. It's a very complex and comprehensive solution to the problem.
I think you're right on one instance. We don't tell our story. We're inside the ball game, inside the ballpark, and inside the United States Congress every day, putting on our armor and being the firewall around some draconian efforts to be able to diminish some of the great needs of our community.
That was part of my conversation with Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee of Texas and Congressman G.K. Butterfield of North Carolina. Up next, the struggle for equal justice, why changing the sentencing laws is just the first step.